Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight, I will be comparing 3:10 to Yuma, released in 1957, versus 3:10 to Yuma, released in 2007. So, let's get started on this one with the leads. 3:10 to Yuma from 1957 stars Glenn Ford and Van Heflin. 3:10 to Yuma from 2007 stars Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. Now, there's a stark difference between the Ben Wades in this film, as much as there is a difference between the Dan Evanses in this film. Ben Wade is played by Glenn Ford in 1957, and then he's played by Russell Crowe in 2007. And the biggest stark difference between the two, other than a sequence early where Glenn Ford shoots his own man and the stagecoach driver, he doesn't show a lot of killer instinct, if you will. Whereas Russell Crowe's version of the character, you don't get the feeling that he is afraid to kill to get what he wants. Glenn Ford's version of Ben Wade is more willing to manipulate someone to get what he wants. And that makes him a really stark difference between Russell Crowe's version and his. Number one, it works like that because Glenn Ford is not known for playing villain characters. So you're not looking at his version of Ben Wade as a bad guy. He's acting like, a fairly decent guy, And other than that sequence where he does kill his own man and the stagecoach driver, there is nothing that shows any killer instinct for the character. He's really calm and methodical with anything that he is planning or doing. So, that is quite the conundrum when you try to figure out which performance is the best. Because one is kind of understated with Glenn Ford, and then the other is fairly obvious with Russell Crowe. Now that with the role of Dan Evans, Van Heflin is more conflicted about what he is doing here. And he initially only goes after Ben Wade's group to go ahead and help the marshal to catch them. And once they capture Ben, he feels his obligation to the marshal is done. But when the money offer comes up, him being in a spot, he goes ahead and takes the money. But as it goes along, he is still conflicted about how far he wants to go to collect this money. So, whereas Christian Bale, his version of Dan is a little bit different. He is wanting to prove himself to his son. And Van Heflin's version doesn't have anything that he feels like he has to prove. So, again, it's, a stark difference between the two characters. But I think this one is just too tough to call. They are both excellent in their portrayals, so I am going to give this one a draw on this one. So let's move on to the supporting and see if we can get a different outcome there. 3:10 to Yuma from 1957's supporting cast consists of Alicia Farr, Leora Donna, Henry Jones, Richard Jackal, Robert Emhart, Ford Rainey, and Barry Curtis. The supporting cast on 3:10 to Yuma from 2007 consists of Vanessa Shaw, Gretchen Mol, Alan Tudyk, Ben Foster, Dallas Roberts, Peter Fonda, and Logan Lerman. So I'm going to do this one very similar to the way I did with the leads, and I'm going to compare any of them that are similar characters in the film. So let's start off with Alicia Farr playing Emmy, or Vanessa Shaw in the remake playing Emma. Now, it's basically the same character in this, and they get about the same amount of screen time. There's not really much difference between this performance. This is probably the most spot on and very similar performance in here. Now, Vanessa Shaw's version of the character does get that additional scene where she's nude on the bed as Ben Wade is drawing her picture, which, of course, wasn't in the 57 version because they wouldn't have shown something like that. But other than that, these performances are pretty much similar. Now let's look at the wife of Dan Evans, Alice, played by Leora Dano in the 57 version and played by Gretchen Mol in the 2007 version. I think Leora Dano gets more to do as this character. And it's a shame because, I mean, Gretchen Mol is a really great actress. I would have liked to have seen her get what Leora got as the character of Alice in here. So this one's a pretty easy one to pick on this one, on which one I think is the better performance in here. I think Leora gets a lot more to do, so I'm going to side with her on this one. Now, another character that's similar in this, but they changed his kind of name and background. Henry Jones as Alex Potter, or Dr. Potter as played by Alan Tudyk in the remake. Because Alex in the original is the town drunk. And in the remake, Dr. Potter is the town doctor. So they changed him from the town drunk to the town doctor. I think Henry Jones makes a bigger impact in the story, in my opinion, just because by the end he is influential to what Dan is going to do during the finale. I don't think Alan Tudyk's Dr. Potter makes such an impact in the story. So let's move on to Charlie Prince, as played by Richard Jackal in the 57 version and played by Ben Foster in the remake. Now, Richard Jackal is a great actor, and he portrays Charlie as more of just a loyal second to Ben Wade. Whereas Ben Foster plays Charlie, he's a loyal second to Ben, but he's more sadistic and likes to kill. You don't get any of that in the performance from Richard Jackal, that he's this cold-blooded killer and he likes to kill, whereas Ben Foster's version of the character is like that. So I think I do kind of really like, because I've always liked Ben Foster as an actor. I think his performance is the better version in this. So, yeah. All right, so let's move on to Mr. Butterfield from the original, as played by Robert Emhart, versus Grayson Butterfield, as played by Dallas Roberts. Now, I think both of these serve kind of the same purpose in the film, but they are done in quite a different way, because Emhart's version of Mr. Butterfield is just a stagecoach owner, whereas Dallas Roberts' version with Grayson Butterfield is an actual railroad agent. So it kind of gives it a different dynamic on why he is paying Dan to do what he's paying him to do here. So it does give a little bit more incentive to Dallas Roberts' version of the character, but I don't think that was really necessary to do that. In the end, both of them end up kind of backing down on that obligation that they have put Dan into. So it is very similar, but just differently portrayed, the way that they do it. Now, the last comparison between these actors that is very similar that I can do this with is Barry Curtis as Matthew, the oldest son of Dan, versus Logan Lerman's William, the oldest son of Dan. So both of them are playing the oldest son, but unlike his wife with Alice, with Gretchen Mol, I think Logan Lerman definitely gets more screen time and more of a story than what Barry Curtis does in the original. He gets a few little moments in there, but he's not a central character as much as what the version of the character titled William is in the remake. So this one's probably going to go to Logan in there. So I think on this aspect alone, I think the strongest in the supporting is going to have to go to the 2007 version. I think the supporting in the 57 version is okay, but I think it's a bit stronger with some of this stuff than the original. All right, so let's move on to story. The story of 3:10 to Yuma consists of an impoverished rancher takes a risky job of escorting a notorious outlaw to justice. Now, other than the overall, plot line between the two films being the same, they are written quite differently. The 57 version is written very similar to a film like High Noon, where it is more tension-based and more psychological. Whereas 3:10 to Yuma from 2007 is, in my opinion, it's more along the lines of the Wild Bunch style, where it is more violent and action-oriented. And nowhere is that better stated than the way that the Charlie Prince character is in these two films. Whereas he is a good second to Ben in the original, like I said, with Richard Jekyll playing him, and he is a violent, sadistic killer in Ben Foster's version of the character. So it just depends on your style that you are into at the time. Both films are great with the story, but if you want a high noon, more dramatic, tension-based film, then the 57 version is perfectly in that same vein. Whereas if you want that more action-oriented version, like The Wild Bunch, the 2007 version fits that build very well. So I'm going to give this one a tie as well, because I like both aspects of the story and the way they were written. All right, so let's move on to direction and see if we can get a final winner on this one. 3:10 to Yuma of 1957 is directed by Delmore Daves, and 3:10 to Yuma 2007 is directed by James Mangold. Now, as I said in the writing, the way that it is written and the way that Delmore Daves directs the 57 version, it has that high noon, tension-filled, dramatic way of it doesn't have a lot of violence in it to where you have a lot of gunfights in it and a lot of interactions like that. Like I said, the opening sequence in which Glenn Ford's Ben Wade shoots his own man and the stagecoach driver is the biggest instance of big action and gunfights until the finale. And the finale is quite different as a directed film. There's a big slam bang gunfight finale in the 2007 as directed by James Mangold. And he does an excellent job directing that sequence there. Whereas the 57 version, you have Delmore Daves makes it a very much tension-filled moment as Van Heflin tries to get Glenn Ford through the town to the railroad station without getting either one of them killed. And the ending is very different as far as what happens. So, like I said, it is more violent in Mangold's version than it is in Dave's version. But I think the ending to the 2007 version, it does feel a bit more appropriate to me than the odd ending to the original. Very understated and very quick and easy ending to the 57 version, whereas it's more tragic and sad in the 2007 ending. So I'm going to give this one to the 2007 one. Very close here, though, too. So that gives our winner with a final tally of 2-4 to 3:10 to Yuma 2007. But what do you think of these two films? Do you agree with my comparison? Do you disagree? Let me know in those comments down below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to an area on the channel right now where you can pick a film, TV series, or a ranking video of your choosing. And when I do it on the channel, it will go up for all Plus members to watch prior to it becoming available for the general public. So if you want to get interactive, now is a good time. Well, that's the end of another Versus Night. If you missed last week's Versus Night, check out the link up in here. Or if you've missed any of the other Versus Nights, check out our playlist and see anything that you have missed.